In today's build video, I'm going to showcase one of my favourites that I use in the Season of Arrivals. Not only that, but it's also one of the strongest due to a number of the Charged with Light mods. I'm going to show you all of the ins and outs in this build, what perks you need to be keeping an eye out for, and how you can maximise its potential. So if that sounds good to you, stick around, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get on with the build. Okay, so this one is all centered around sidearms and being charged with light. Surprise attack is the mod that we'll be using, and it finally got a fix to show the correct icon in a recent patch instead of the energy converter icon it was previously incorrectly showing. So if you don't know, this Arrivals mod turns sidearms from being rather meh to rather yeah. This mod costs 1 void energy and will provide you with the charged magazine buff when you ready or reload a sidearm whilst charged with light, consuming all stacks in the process. Each stack consumed will give you a 5 times charged magazine buff up to a maximum of a 25 times stack, and this buff will increase your damage output of your sidearm by a massive 50%. The beauty of this is that it'll only consume 1 stack of charged magazine per damage that you cause with that sidearm. However, if you swap weapons, you will lose the buff altogether. It's an insane mod and it will stack with weapon perks like Rampage, Kill Clip and even Vorpal Weapon. So that's where the sidearm Breachlight comes in. This legendary aggressive frame sidearm is very unique and powerful in its own right due to its hard hitting 2 burst fire. It's long been a favourite of mine since it dropped in Season of Dawn, but you can now also obtain it from the Umbral engrams this season too. The roll I've got here took me a while to farm for way back when, but it's the perfect roll for a variety of situations and it fits very nicely into this build. Vorpal Weapon is the main trait which will increase the damage to mages, bosses, vehicles and guardians in their supers. This offers a 15% damage buff in the buff situations and stacks on top of the Surprise Magazine mod too. You can also add in something like Major or Boss Spec 2 to further increase its damage output. But this one also comes with Demolitionist in its first trait slot, which will allow kills with this weapon to generate grenade energy, as well as reloading the magazine when you use a grenade. But Demolitionist is great for the build we're going for, as to further increase the sidearm's damage output we're going to be using Oppressive Darkness and the Void Grenades to provide a 30% debuff to enemies. This neutral energy mod costs 6 energy and is a class item specific mod available from the seasonal artifact. Pairing Demo with Oppressive Darkness will allow us to have our grenades back all of the time in this build, providing us with the most opportunity to have the maximum damage output possible. But to get the maximum damage output in this build, we want to become charged with light, and so we will be using both Taking Charge to become charged with light by collecting Orbs of Light, but also the Arc mod Swift Charge. This new Arrivals mod costs 5 arc energy and will allow you to become charged with light by rapidly defeating multiple combatants with a sidearm, SMG or pulse rifle. Both of these mods will give us ample opportunity to become charged with light all of the time and make the most out of the charged magazine and Oppressive Darkness mods. Now if that wasn't enough, we're also going to chuck in the Lucent Blade mod too, because if you aren't using Fallen Guillotine, you might as well not even be playing. Falling Guillotine by itself is immense, but when paired with the damage increase provided by Lucent Blade, it turns this one all the way up. Yes, we might be taking away some of the potential from the sidearm, but I feel by taking advantage of 2 super strong mods to buff 2 different weapon archetypes is the epitome of builds offered in Destiny 2 right now. For those of you who don't know, Lucent Blade costs 4 arc energy and will activate when you are charged with light and cause damage with a sword. This will provide you with a buff to sword damage for 5 seconds, consuming 1 stack of charged with light. This mod provides a huge 35% damage buff and is absolutely deadly when it's stacked with a Whirlwind Blade Sword too, allowing you to delete most mini bosses from existence and offering some top tier DPS on all bosses too. Now to round this loadout off, we are chucking in what I think is probably one of the most underrated but absolutely god tier rolls I've found this season. All Wings Maul is one I've been raving about for a few weeks now, and you've probably seen it lurking in a number of videos, and we've even touched on it in a few previous builds too. But this one I've got here takes the biscuit. Not only does it have threat detector for that increase to reload, stability and handling when enemies are nearby, as well as demolitionist, which as I've mentioned above will massively increase our damage output potency with oppressive darkness, but it comes with the ultimate utility perk, blinding grenades. Now I know you're probably turning your head at the screen right now, wondering how and why I'd even suggest this over spike or proximity grenades in the magazine slot, but hear me out. Blinding grenades in this build is an absolute godsend, and has allowed me to take on bunches of high tier adds in Nightfall Ordeals and the new Prophecy dungeon with absolute ease. Now I know it says in the perk that it greatly decreases blast radius, which is true, as mainly nearly only a direct impact will kill a red bar ad and cause the most damage, but the blinding effect caused by the explosion is actually larger than you may think. With the controlled detonation style required by this grenade launcher and the decreased blast radius, I'd often feel like I'd whiffed a shot and I've wasted it, but in actual fact I've essentially just shut down a whole bunch of enemies which are now walking around aimlessly waiting to be struck down by my charged magazine sidearm or Lucent blade sword. It just absolutely sets up this build, and it allows you to take full advantage of the mods, as a group of blinded enemies will now provide ample rapid kills to become charged with light, and then you can use them to benefit even more sidearm kills or take on a major or mini boss with your Lucent blade sword. The only thing I'd genuinely like to swap out would be threat detector for auto loading holster, but we get what we get and we don't get upset, as they say. Lastly, we're going to pair this build with one exotic armor piece for the hunter, and it's an obvious choice with the OG Mechania's trick sleeves. You can grab the base pair from your collections, which will do you just fine, and these come with the exotic intrinsic perk Spring Loaded Holster, which increases sidearm ready and reload speed. Also, whilst you are critically wounded, swapping to a sidearm increases its damage output. This perk stacks with the charged magazine buff too, and is absolutely nuts of what it'll do in terms of damage for a short amount of time. We already covered an in-depth build with this and the Devil's Ruin at the start of the season, and the things that you can do with it, which turns this exotic from previously being meh to absolutely yeah. Obviously, this build doesn't take into account any champion mods, with the only real option that you could consider would be to put in the Overload Grenades artifact mod on your chest armour, unless you swap out other weapons for your sidearm like the aforementioned Devil's Ruin and its intrinsic Unstoppable Champion perk. Also, if you don't want to mix up the Charge with Light mods, you could just replace the Lucent Blade mod for something like the Solar Affinity Supercharged mod. This will provide you with more stacks of Charge with Light and therefore more charged magazine rounds more often, as you won't be depleting Charge with Light to use with your sword. This would then open your loadout to use the likes of the heavy hitting Anarchy or Xenophage for optimal range DPS in raids or encounters where a sword doesn't excel. I recently took this build all the way through the Prophecy dungeon, and not once did I feel underpowered or unable to pull my weight. All Wings Maul honestly sets up this whole build, and despite blinding myself on a number of occasions, it came in clutch often when I was trying to get out of trouble or set up to clear a new wave of adds with my sidearm. When running in a fire team, it's great as you can collect orbs of light produced by them to maximise your own damage output from all sources. This is one of my favourite builds this season, and I really don't even get to use it that much due to all the mixing around I do to put these build guides together. So if you've got chance, or you've been struggling for a formidable and versatile loadout to set you straight until the end of the season, then look no further than this one right here. Let me know in the comment section below if you've been using the surprise attack mod and which sidearms you've been having fun pairing with it. Once again, I want to thank everyone for the amazing support here on the channel, as we recently flew by 1.5 thousand subs on the channel. It doesn't seem like 2 minutes since we hit 1k, but this season has really kicked on in terms of growth and interaction here, which I'm loving to see, especially in the comments and in the live chat during the premieres. Remember, I create these builds to start a conversation about what's possible. They aren't the be all and end all, so sound off below and let me know what you think. I've also potentially got some big news coming up for subscribers on the channel too, so stay tuned for that. If you're not subscribed though and you've made it this far, thank you, but also consider hitting that subscribe button, as well as dropping a rating down below too. All of this support really helps me out and is always greatly appreciated. Also, share the video with your friends or clanmates if you found it helpful. On that, and as always, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.